A very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Kumud Chandan, and I'm the Deputy Coordinator of the Nalanda courses, Tibet House, New Delhi, and I'll be moderating the first session of the conference. Now, I would like to take this wonderful opportunity to extend my heartiest welcome to Professor Vivek Suneja ji, our guest of honor, and the chairperson of this session, and Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdula, the director of Tibet House, New Delhi, our distinguished guest speakers, Dr. Nilza Wangmo and Professor Samdarshi ji, and my fellow participants. I would really like to convey my sincere regards and appreciation to all of you for joining with us today with this absolutely wonderful ambience. Thank you. And now let me introduce the theme for this session, which is the vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for a peaceful world. And I would like to humbly request our chairperson of the session, Professor Vivek Suneja ji, and our respected guest speaker, Dr. Nilza Wangmo and Professor Samdarshi ji, to kindly come on stage and occupy their respective seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our chairperson and our guest speakers with a massive round of applause. Please welcome. Please. Now, before I proceed with the first session, I would like to request each and every one of you to, kindly we'll have the Q&A session after the guest speakers, they are done with this, they're done with the topics, and that will be for 20 minutes. And may I now briefly introduce our chairperson, Professor Vivek Suneja ji, who is the former Pro-Vice Chancellor of Delhi University and current head and Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi. Now, may I request Professor Vivek Suneja ji to kindly address this session? Please welcome, sir.
It's wonderful that on a cold, frosty, chilly morning in Delhi, so many warm-hearted people are here. So, heart is coming. Which is more difficult, speaking or listening? Which takes more effort? Listening. You can speak for hours. Listening is deeply difficult and highly respectful because you're letting somebody else into your life when you listen, when you seriously listen. Yeah? So thank you. It's a great honor that all of you are here to listen to whatever we might have to say, wise or unwise. But the fact that you're here to listen to us, we are greatly humbled. This session is the first session, Universal Ethics, the Vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for a Peaceful World. We have two wonderful panelists here. Dr. Kumud Bhansali could not make it, but since we are running short of time, that means the other two panelists will have a little more time to say what they wish to say. So our first, and I'll introduce the first panelist. Both panelists will get about 20 minutes to speak, and after that, we'll have a 20 minutes Q&A session. Is that okay? Young friends, are you still awake? Young friends, raise your hands if you're still awake. Good. Everybody is young here. I mean, young friends. I saw somebody jogging in a park a few days ago. He had a T-shirt on. These days, all sayings come on T-shirts. You don't get diaries anymore. And it said, I was feeling tired yesterday. I'm feeling tired today. I'm retired. Retired. You can retire at 25. I teach management. Some of my students have retired already at 26. They've earned some salary package. They think that's it. Yeah? Life is done. You got a job, you got a flat, you'll marry, you have kids, who'll again get a job, get married. Done. Done, dried and dusted. So you can retire at 25. Or you can never retire. You can always remain young. Huh? Youth is a state of mind, really a state of heart. So first, Buddha is called the enlightened one, not the good one, the enlightened one, the man who woke up, who's sensitive. His ears are right up to his shoulders. His ears, that's why I was saying, listeners, his ears are right up till here. And he's not speaking generally. He's quiet. So we have the easy task. Huh? He's quiet. You people have to have these big ears, all of us. That ears denote sensitivity to the world. To be sensitive to the world. To be awake to the world. Not to sleepwalk through life as if in a daze. But be sensitive with your heart, your mind, your body, your heart to everything that's going around you. To be alive, not to be dead. And that freedom of aliveness is nirvana. So let's all be alive and co-create. This is not people speaking here and you listening. This is a co-creation. And after the both have spoken, we'll have a lively 20 minutes, yes, of debate. Perhaps a better word is dialogue. Even a better word is conversation. I still remember, and that was a transformative experience. Samdong Rinpoche, the PM in exile, had come to Delhi University. Yeah, His Holiness often graced Delhi University. And on this occasion, Rinpoche ji was there. And I asked him, he was addressing an audience of young students. I asked him, "Sir, do you have a PowerPoint presentation?" And he said, "I don't have power. PM in exile. Nor do I have really any point to make. But if you permit me, I'd like to have a dialogue with the students." From that day, I've never ever used a PowerPoint in my class. I gave it up. So let's have a dialogue. Our first speaker for the day, your panelist, is Dr. Nilza Wangmo, and I'll briefly introduce her. Dr. Nilza Wangmo, I hope I get your pronunciation right, got her Bachelor of Arts degree from Lady Shri Ram College, Delhi University, and a Master's and MPhil degree in Buddhist Studies from the University of Delhi. She was awarded a PhD degree from JNU and was a UGC JRF Fellow. She attended the Mind and Life Summer Research Institute at Garrison, New York in 2016. She has taught at Central Institute of Buddhist Studies, Leh in 2020. She worked for the global launch of SEE, Social Emotional Ethical Learning, in New Delhi in 2019. She worked as a research associate for the International Buddhist Confederation until recently. She has participated in various conferences and online talks for Global Peace Foundation on Facets of Faith 2020 and Earth Day Network India on interfaith dialogue on investing in our planet. Her aim and vision is to study and share the rich philosophy of the Nalanda Pandits, complementing it with modern science as envisioned and advised by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It's a great pleasure to welcome Dr. Nilza Wangmo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson Dr. Suneja ji, for the kind introduction. So I don't have a PowerPoint. I'll just be speaking, and I hope I can have a dialogue with you all. So I would like to first thank Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah and Tibet House for giving me this opportunity. So I would be sharing on the topic His Holiness the Dalai Lama's 4 commitments, the way forward. And as Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah earlier mentioned today, that there is a lack of education of the heart. And in this regard, I'd like to share a short anecdote, which I read somewhere long back. So this is a short example which could Okay, so there was an aeroplane flying in the sky, and the pilot made an announcement and said, "I have two announcements to make. One is the good news, and the other is the bad news." So he asked, "Which one would you like to hear first?" And obviously, the passengers thought that the flight's going to crash, or they're going to all die. So they said, "Why not hear the good news before we all die?" So the good news was, the pilot said, all the functions of the plane is going well. We have good amount of fuel, and everything is working perfect, technically. So people looked at each other and then said, "Then what is the bad news?" So he said, the pilot said, "The bad news is we've lost the direction." So I think this really resonates with the lack of education of the heart in today's times, especially in the education system. So I think His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he has been dedicatedly trying to show the world a sense of direction towards a happier life. So I'd like to just mention 4 of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's commitments. I'm sure many of you must know about these 4 commitments. So the first is promotion of basic human values. Second is the promotion of religious harmony. Third is preservation of Tibetan language, culture, and heritage. And the fourth is revival of ancient Indian knowledge. So when I saw this online on the Dalai Lama website, you could read it on the Dalai Lama website, the 4 commitments. What was interesting to me was the first commitment. It started with His Holiness saying, "As a human being." So I think in these 4 commitments, His Holiness talks about himself at different levels. The first being a human being. So the second one, he says promotion of religious harmony as a Buddhist monk. So that's the other identity that he has. And the third being preservation of Tibetan language, culture, and heritage. There His Holiness writes as a Tibetan. So again, the identity of being a Tibetan. And the fourth, as many of you must have heard His Holiness say in the public talks, and that he considers himself a chela of the ancient Indian gurus. So I think at that level, his responsibility for the revival of ancient Indian knowledge comes about. So these are the 4 commitments of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So let me just go one by one. Okay, so before that, I'll just read a bit about His Holiness. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is a man of peace. In 1989, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for consistently advocating policies of nonviolence, even in the face of extreme aggression. He also became the first Nobel laureate to be recognized for his concern for global environmental problems. So having traveled extensively to over 67 countries spanning 6 continents, meeting with people from different walks of life, he's the recipient of over 150 awards, honorary doctorates, prizes, etc., in recognition of his message of peace, nonviolence, interreligious understanding, universal responsibility, and compassion. He's also authored or co-authored more than 110 books. His Holiness has held discussions with heads of different religions and participated in many events promoting interreligious harmony and understanding. Since the mid-80s, His Holiness has engaged in a dialogue with modern scientists, mainly in the field of psychology, neurobiology, quantum physics, and cosmology. This has led to a historic collaboration between Buddhist monks and world-renowned scientists in trying to better understand the self and our world. So some of the world-renowned scientists, after all these dialogues happened, have given His Holiness the name a natural scientist, because they are just boggled at his level of intelligence. And the focus of His Holiness Dalai Lama's colossal endeavors extends from the cause of the Tibetan freedom struggle to universal ethics, to bridging the gap between science and religion. At the Dalai Lama's teaching, people meet a man who describes himself as a simple Buddhist monk. His life and accomplishments, however, can only be described as much more than simple. So the 4 commitments of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I would be elaborating a bit on that. So I'd also like to mention that in 2020, the CTA, Tibetan Central Government Administration, Department of Information and International Relations, they invited over 120 eminent speakers from 19 different countries for a talk series on the 4 commitments of His Holiness the Dalai Lama under the banner Year of Gratitude to His Holiness the Great 14th Dalai Lama. So if you're interested, you can watch these virtual talk series on YouTube. I think our Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul is one of the speakers as well. So going to the first commitment, promotion of basic human values, when His Holiness talks about the basic human values, he talks about values such as compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, contentment, and self-discipline. So to His Holiness, when he speaks about human values, they're universal values, and they are grounded on 3 basic things, which is first is common experience, common sense, and then scientific findings. So His Holiness says that all the 8 billion people on this planet, we all come from our mothers, and we have survived until today simply because of the kindness of our mothers. And without that basic compassion that we experience at the time of birth and after, this planet would not have survived. So based on that basic compassionate emotion that we all learned from our mothers, inculcating that and practicing that in our daily lives to promote the basic human values, seeing others in the light of oneself. So His Holiness, and there's an underlying fundamental reality that we all of us, all living beings, there's one thing that is common amongst us is we all want happiness, and we all shun suffering. So based on that, His Holiness encourages us to practice these basic human values. And I'd like to quote His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. Quote, "I believe that at every level of society, familial, tribal, national, and international, the key to a happier and more successful world is the growth of compassion. We do not need to become religious, nor do we need to believe in an ideology. All that is necessary is for each one of us to develop our good human qualities. I try to treat whoever I meet as an old friend. This gives me a genuine feeling of happiness. This is the practice of compassion," unquote. So most of the alarming problems that we face today are global and not confined to political boundaries. So therefore, I think the solutions to these global problems should also be universal in nature and should be based on empathy, compassion, tolerance, and a deep understanding of interdependency of oneself and others. So the second commitment, promotion of interreligious harmony, says His Holiness is committed to encouraging harmony among the world religious traditions on the basis that despite having philosophical differences, All the religions are based on compassion, self-discipline, tolerance, etc. All the religions aim to bring happiness and avoid suffering based on the individual's wish and desires. Even the Buddha had taught as per individual's disposition and inclination, resulting in 4 different Buddhist tenet systems. And even though with differences in approach, different religious traditions for thousands of years in this world have strived for the same objective, that is peace. Therefore, it is extremely important for all the religions to respect each other and maintain harmony to obtain one's religious objective. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's deep reverence to other religions by visiting different temples, mosques, churches, etc. around the world. So the idea that there is one truth and one religion is relevant to the individual practitioner. For the community at large, several truths, several religions are necessary. So with the third commitment, preservation of Tibetan language, culture, and heritage, His Holiness, after coming into exile, he being a Tibetan and the spiritual leader of Tibet, he committed his life in protecting Tibetans' distinct language, culture, and religion. At the same time, he's committed to resolving the issue of Tibet and protecting the environment. His Holiness has tirelessly worked on these commitments by appealing to the UNO at different times. And His Holiness also established Tibetan settlements, established different Tibetan schools all over India. And His Holiness also took the initiative right at the onset after coming into exile to establish the monastic institutions and nunneries in India, which are the replicas or which were re-established institutions that exist in Tibet, the 3 major monastic institutes, the Sera, Gadan, and Drepung. So we find, I think, Honorable Sikyongla mentioned about having about 46,000 monks, including, I think, many from the Indian Himalayan states. So these are the efforts His Holiness has been putting. His Holiness is also advised on preserving traditional Tibetan medicine and promoting it with scientific evidence. And His Holiness has spoken on environmental protection of the world and in particular of Tibet's environment, which is vital for the whole Asia from the environmental perspective. And I think many of you must have heard that Tibet is also being termed as the 3rd pole of this planet by some scientists. And going to the 4th commitment, revival of ancient Indian knowledge. Tibetan history is witness to us that the 3 Dharma kings of Tibet, they invested extensively and systematically preserved the teachings of the Buddha by inviting the great Indian Panditas to Tibet to teach. So they sent great large amount of wealth in terms of gold, and the messengers were, back in the days, there was no proper connectivity. So they passed all those rough terrains and entered into this tropical weather, which was very challenging. So a lot of hardships they all faced. And all these Nalanda tradition was, over the centuries, taken to Tibet, and under Thomi Sambuddha, the Tibetan script was introduced in the first half of the 7th century, and it was mainly for the codification of the sacred Buddhist texts that were translated from Sanskrit. So today, His Holiness, why he keeps mentioning that, we were the chelas of the Indian masters, and now it's time for the Tibetans to hand over the wealth to the Indian people. So other institutions like Institute of Buddhist Dialectics in Dharamsala and Tibet House, Delhi, and they are also offering rigorous courses to study this rich legacy of the Nalanda Panditas. And also what we saw recently on 3rd of January, His Holiness laid the foundation stone of the Dalai Lama Center for Tibetan and Ancient Wisdom. The center will come up at Baiju Biga village in Bodh Gaya. It will be a global multidisciplinary center focused on conducting education, research, and other programs to promote the study of ancient Indian thought and wisdom. It will serve as a unique repository of knowledge of inestimable value for all people, offering transformative experiential learning and expanding cultural, philosophical, and academic affiliations. Ancient Wisdom highlights the focus of the center, inspired as it is by India's unparalleled heritage of ancient philosophical and spiritual traditions. It will be a center which will fulfill the 4 life commitments of the Dalai Lama. So speaking of the C-Learning, which most of us are aware of, it was launched in April 2019 at Delhi, presided over by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, having over 1,200 participants, and mostly were educators. So these books, the C-Learning curriculum books, are being translated into 14 languages, and they're already being taught in many countries. Thanks. So the Dalai Lama has called for a holistic approach to education that cultivates, alongside traditional academic subjects, a benevolent and ethical mindset grounded in the basic human values that can be discerned through common sense, common experience, and scientific findings. C-Learning is intended to serve as a framework that can be used across countries and cultures, as well as the schools that may be religious or non-religious. Its approach to ethics is not based on any particular religious, cultural, or ethical tradition, but rather on the approach of secular ethics, a non-sectarian approach to universal ethics that can be acceptable to people of any or no religious faith. So this is, I'm going to be quoting the Dalai Lama regarding C-Learning. Quote, the establishment of a worldwide initiative to educate the heart and mind has been a long cherished dream. I would like to thank the many individuals and organizations that have supported this work in various ways. I encourage others involved in education to take up this program and explore its potential to help teachers and students. It is my hope that through our collective efforts, we can make a meaningful contribution to the flourishing of humanity for many generations to come, unquote. So the way forward, I think there is just ultimately just one way, that is, it really starts with the self. So in Buddhist philosophy, we talk about the self and this phenomena other than self. So how we interact with ourselves and how we interact with the world. So I think it happens at 2 levels, cognitive and affective level, the functions. So cognitively, we understand the reality of something. For example, I cognitively know that this is a mic, and I know this is the audience. So effectively, how my mind reacts to these objects that I'm interacting with, so that determines our state of happiness and suffering. So I think to really take all these 4 commitments of His Holiness the Dalai Lama forward, we really need to study the We need to gather the knowledge of the self. We are made of the body and the mind, how our body works, how our mind works, how our emotion works. His Holiness talks about the map of emotions and encourages in sea learning to understand the different emotions that we experience. So there are stark differences between what is compassion and what is loving kindness, but most of us, we equate the two. So understanding each emotion very distinctly and knowing how to deal with these emotions, and also how to deal with the environment, the reality of ourselves and the reality of the world, our perception of the world. So I think the way forward is to really study and then reflect and then meditate on the wisdom that we have extensively around us. And yeah, so I'll end with this. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Nilza. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's 4 commitments. How many of us have any kind of commitment anymore? I mean, do we just drift through life? I teach strategic management, and strategy is about goals and means. But as Nilza was saying, plane is running all right, everything's fine. We've lost direction. It reminds me of an old Buddhist story. A man is on a horse, and the horse is galloping furiously. And so somebody asks, where are you going? I mean, why are you in such a hurry? Where are you going? And the man replies, don't ask me, ask the horse. So next time I hear an announcement on an aeroplane, I'll bear that in mind. I mean, that will stick. 4 commitments, huh? And what brilliant commitments of His Holiness, right? If you ask me my commitments, boy, I better not tell you. Yeah, New Year resolutions, huh? Little, narrow. Look at the Dalai Lamas for the whole wide world. Huh? Look at the width of and the depth of his commitments. First, ethics for the whole world. Number 2, religious harmony. Third, preserve Tibetan culture and language. Fourth, revive ancient Indian wisdom so that we again have a sense of direction. Wow. So we all should have commitments, and we should stick to our commitments. It's now my pleasure to invite the second panelist for this session, Dr. Pranshu Samdarshi. Look at the word there, Samdarshi. Perhaps he can explain what Pranshu means. All Indian names have meaning, right? Yeah? I lived in Britain for almost 15 years, and I used to joke. They always had this sense that they've ruled us, a little colonial mindset, and I always love to puncture that streak of sadism in me, often in a playful way. So I would tell them, your names are, after all, your saints, so Peter and Paul, but all our names have meanings. So they said, okay, what does your name mean? So I said, look, English came from Sanskrit, it did. So we have 2 words. Vivek is a Sanskrit word, conjunction 2 words, viv plus ek, right? Viv, his Sanskrit word, means various, variety, vivid, vistar, various, variegated. And before I could explain ek, Vivek means to make viv ek, synthesize. Look at various as one, facets of one, Vivek, viv ek, one. But before I could explain that, they said, we got your name. I said, how do you get my name? Only explained half of it. Several aches, headache, heartache, pain in the... Yeah. I never tried to explain my name to the British again. Okay. So Dr. Pranshu Samdarshi, wisdom in the word itself, in the name itself, Samdarshi. Dr. Pranshu Samdarshi has been a student of Tibet House for over a decade. Presently, he's serving as assistant professor at Nalanda University. I mean, you must have done some karmic good stuff in your past life to be at Nalanda, at Rajgir. He has completed his PhD from Department of History at the University of Delhi, where he explored the dynamic relationship between sacred feminine imagery and Buddhist Tantra practices. He has authored 2 books and published several research papers. He has served as an assistant professor at Amrita University, International Center for Spiritual Studies, Bangalore, for 2 years. He was also invited to design and teach courses of Buddhist studies at the Namgyal Institute of Tibetology, Gangtok, and the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, Delhi. And today he will be speaking on interdependence, sense of oneness, and global responsibility, the call of the Dalai Lama for universal ethics and future world order. It's my great pleasure to invite Dr. Pranshu Samdarshi. Please explain your name to us.
Thank you, Professor Suneja. He asked, and he is my university's former pro-vice chancellor. So I will, abide by his order. So in India, we have, when I was born, so my sister read a story of Queen Madalasa. I don't know, nowadays people don't read the scriptures, but this comes in Markandeya Puran, where, there is a queen and she names her children with, something very, very unique. And the idea is to remind you that, okay, your name is this, so that you have to, follow that. So that is how my sister gave me this heavy name. And I don't know whether I'm able to abide that equanimity within me, that equanimity, the Samdarshi, one who's equanimous, who sees everything with samatha, with equanimity. That I'm not sure. I'm not sure how good at I am, but yes, definitely I try to practice that. One of the four Brahma Viharas, the four four immeasurables. So samatha is the fourth one. So, and the first name, that means Pranshu. Pranshu means something who is tall. So maybe I became little, my parents, it's a name of a Vishnu, the Lord Vishnu, and he takes a form of giant when he takes Trivikram form. So he's termed as Pranshu. But whenever somebody asks my name, I often quote Kalidas. Kalidas says that Pranshu labhye phale lobhat udbahuri vamana. He says, first line is Mandah Kavi Yashah Prarthi. I'm a very Manda, means very dull poet, and Yashah Prarthi. I want all my name, I want to become famous. Actually, that's the humbleness how these great, scholars of ancient India showed that I'm a Manda, I'm a dull, and, Yashah Prarthi. I want to get fame. So, Gamishyami Upahasatam. People will laugh at me when I'm composing this poetry. This is from Raghuvamsham. Anyway, so before I spoke about myself, let me tell something very unique thing about Professor Suneja. I knew Professor Suneja for last 10 years. I had a friend who used to whenever he violated some traffic signal, so if the traffic person will come and challan him, so he'll say, I know the commissioner. So the traffic person will leave him, won't fine him. So that way, I can claim that I know Professor Suneja. But jokes apart, Professor Suneja, when I was doing my master's and PhD from Delhi University, I had few meetings with him. I'm sure that he doesn't remember that. The way my friend did not, the police commissioner did not know, my friend, but he claimed that I know this commissioner. Anyway, so Professor Suneja, I had a small meeting where I got to know, I'm talking about, I think, 2012, 11. I was a volunteer of Spikmake. I'm still, so I got to know that Professor Suneja is not having a mobile phone. So then I thought, okay, look, my university provides, this is a renunciation. If you can live without mobile phone, you are a true renouncer. So then I tried to practice it for 6 months. I could not, but after 6 months, I have to, after immediately 10 years back, I learned. So under him, several great initiatives were taken, and there are people like Professor T.K. Mishra, or I wish that more such academicians and administrators are there in our educational system. So Okay, so now I enter into the topic. When I was given this topic to speak, and again there is I read somewhere interview of Bill Gates. Somebody said him, and he answered that give a person a topic today, he don't think about it, he search. Nowadays we are because of this technological advancement, we are losing gradually we are losing our this thinking capacity. So I'm also a victim of that. So I searched one very unique ethics for the whole world. So when this book was published, His Holiness gave a talk. So YouTube, I watched that talk, and where His Holiness is saying that this term beyond religion was not his suggestion. The publishers actually gave this name. So when the publishers they came with this name beyond religion, so he was reluctant about this. No, beyond religion, he's saying that maybe people will think something I'm going to talking about, something which is above religion or which is something apart from religion. So in that talk, he very clearly says that it's not about something apart from the religion. It's something which is universal, the commonalities between various religions, which I'm discussing in this book. So this, commonality is constantly it is reflected in His Holiness teachings. I come from Nalanda. Now, if you listen to His Holiness talk, he often emphasizes. I'll read one of his quotation where he says in 2006 he says this: I see myself as a monk first, then as a practitioner of Nalanda tradition of wisdom. Then he further says, at this point, I don't say I belong to Hinayana or Mahayana, but to the lineage of Nalanda. This Nalanda, the great legacy which, again, Government of India is trying to revive. It's in very premature stage at this point of time, but His Holiness often emphasizes this Nalanda tradition. And this Nalanda, the term, Sanskrit is a wonderful language. It helps you to live with the contradictions. So the same word can have multiple meanings, sometimes even two opposite meanings. So here Nalanda, actually Nalanda in Sanskrit has a two meaning. One is Nalam Da. Nal is the lotus. So lotus symbolizes wisdom. So giver of wisdom. So Nalanda has been this giver of wisdom across the whole world, without any without any discrimination of caste, creed, nation, language. So it was open to all. This Nalanda. Another meaning which is highlighted by 7Jan, this Chinese traveler, he says Na Alam Da, giving the knowledge without any limits. Alam means limits. So something without limits. For me, this first meaning gives the idea of what we call ultimate bodhicitta, the supreme, the wisdom of enlightenment. The wisdom of emptiness, the ultimate bodhicitta. The vision of supreme reality. So giver, this Nalanda tells you what His Holiness Dalai Lama is emphasizing about. Nalanda is giver of that wisdom, ultimate bodhicitta. And second is the limitless giving. So there is a story that Buddha incarnated as a bodhisattva in Jataka story in Nalanda, and he was a king, and he was never satisfied by giving to others. So this tradition, for me, this another meaning symbolizes the conventional bodhicitta, which is the altruism or the generosity, all these things. Okay. So this giver of wisdom. Okay, I have a little more time, so I'll tell you one more story which perhaps Indian people could correlate. I was reading this Gospel of Ramakrishna. There was this great master, teacher of Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna. So, Gospel of Ramakrishna, there is a very interesting anecdote. It is recorded. Ramakrishna Parabhams is meeting with Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee is the author of the national song Vande Mataram. Most of you might be knowing. So this ordinary priest of a temple is meeting a person who is very, very, knowledgeable, PhD from abroad, and, a very famous personality. They both are meeting. And, this Bankim Chandra is going with, his all lavish, with embroideries, coat and, dhoti, and this very ordinary priest, crazy like person. But Bankim Chandra Chatterjee knew that this is a great person. So he goes and, so first Ramakrishna Paramahamsa look at his, dress, and he says, "Who are you?" So he introduces himself. So he says, "You look like a very wealthy person." So he says, "Yes, I am." "So what is this all wealth for?" Then this Bankim Chandra Chatterjee says, "No, if I have wealth, then I can help the people." Then Ramakrishna Paramahamsa gets into a different mode. He starts, almost scolding him. He says, "Who are you? Who do you think you are, that you will help others?" No, help comes from above. You can only serve others. Narsi Mehta wrote a beautiful bhajan in Gujarati, which was popularized by Mahatma Gandhi. He says, "Vaishnav jan to tene kahiye par peer parai jani re." But second line is more important. It says, "Paradukhe upakar kare." If you are doing something good for others, man abhiman na ani re. You should not feel that, abhiman should not be there. So this, we in here in India, we are often exposed to all these, Vaishnavajan, but it remains on just, superficial level. What Nalanda tradition, which I have learned from Geshe Dorje Damdullah. So Nalanda tradition is something about, which gives you that this, getting, this idea of altruism or philanthropy, these all are actually, in a sense, it's a Western idea. You cannot, help others, you can serve others. And the serving has, why to serve others? So I studied in a Christian missionary school. They taught moral science, very good. But here, if you look at the Nalanda tradition, the great masters like Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti and Dharmakirti, they have established these things on a different level. When you see from the ultimate perspective, the idea of Pratitya Samutpada, which means theory of dependent origination. Just look at the word how Chandrakirti, great 6th, 7th century Nalanda master, is defining. He's saying Prati means something which is in front. Sam means together. Utpad is the production. Utpad, if you know Hindi, Utpad means product. So what he's saying, there is a mind, you, and there is a self and the other. And when they come together, this production is, this phenomenal word is coming into existence. So the external world cannot exist without you, and you cannot exist without external world. So you are internally related. And this is what Professor Suneja pointed out, what quantum physicists are proving at present through experiment. It's not quantum physics no more just a theory. It is a practical. We have quantum computers, and quantum physicists, the way they have now proven it. This year to 2022, the Nobel laureates have, the Nobel laureate who was also a good friend of His Holiness Dalai Lama. These, the physicists, they have proven that there is the role of your own observation. So we are participatory observer in this reality, and this has been proven experimentally. So this interdependence has been first proven. Just if we teach moral science or ethics on a very superficial level, the way it has been done till now, it doesn't remain. It does not enter into our subconsciousness. What Nalanda masters they did, they proved it empirically. Let me share you another incident. My parents, they used to go, very personal incident I am telling you. My parents used to visit a very ordinary lady, Bengali lady. She was famous, known as Mata Anandamai Ma. So she was ordinary looking, she could hardly speak even Hindi. She could manage with. So she has a unique quality. If somebody is visiting, suppose somebody is visiting and child is very sick, and that the person is, we usually visit the saints when we have some problem, So if somebody is visiting her and that person, suppose child is sick, so she would automatically know without the person is telling that, okay, my child is sick, she will ask, don't worry, your child will get, well. So she would know, what we can say, she would read the minds. So somebody asked her that, how you know what others are feeling? How do you know others? You know what her answer was? She said, who is the other? So this universal sense of oneness, those who get little deeper into these, spiritual practices, this universal sense of oneness automatically comes into you. And there is no other external. We are not harming, what Nalanda masters have proved rationally and what quantum physicists are proving experimentally. When we are harming, the nature or somebody else, there is no other. Actually, finally we are harming us. So this has been there in, in our tradition, whether we are aware of it or not. And in Bodhisattva Shantidev, in his Bodhicharya avatar, in his the 8th chapter, the chapter on meditation, he brings it as a practice. And he tells that this is esoteric practice. And he tells, because, if you start talking about quantum physics to ordinary person, he'll laugh on you. That, oh, my mind is making this table. No. So he says, make it esoteric, because he might be knowing that people. So he said, this is esoteric practice, and he talks about swatma parivartan, transforming the self to others. And then paratma samata, the self-sameness feeling for the other. Which is practiced in Buddhism, Tonglen practice. That this self, the idea of self is, Buddhism talks about anatma. There is no self. But self exists. So he is saying that self-sameness feeling for the others. And paratma samata. His Holiness, in one of his talk, he points out that we can live without religion. He says, religion is, when we are born, we don't have any religion. Newborn baby. But we cannot live without compassion and ethics. All of us here present, we have survived because of our love of mother or motherly love of somebody's. So there are atheist people, those who don't have any religion. But we can live without religion, but we cannot live without, ethics, compassion, these values, universal values. So I think I have... here I'll quote a great master again from Nalanda and Vikramshila, Sarahapad, and he's a great Tantra master. One of his saying, which is also there in our Tibet House prayer booklet, he says, Sarahapad, he says, by entering into wisdom of emptiness, but devoid of compassion, one will not find supreme path. By entering into this ultimate reality, but devoid of compassion, one will not find the supreme path. And at the same time, by meditating upon compassion alone, one will not attain liberation. Often these technological advancements are necessary, but without the ethical values. When this pandemic came, His Holiness pointed out that prayers are not enough. So both are, medical facilities and prayers, both are needed. So Sarahapad is pointing out to that. At the same time, by meditating upon compassion alone, one will not attain liberation, but remain in samsara. One soever is capable of finding the union between two is the realized one. So we need to, look at the balance, and then I think time is about to up. So I'll conclude with another anecdote. When Professor Suneja was Pro Vice Chancellor, we used to invite His Holiness the Dalai Lama at Delhi University. So I went for His Holiness talk as a student there, and I still remember Professor Firoz Ahmad was given the responsibility. He's a physics professor, so he was given that responsibility to give the welcome address. And Professor Firoz Ahmad shared a beautiful statement, which is coming from which is actually a letter written by Albert Einstein to Heisenberg, two greatest mind of 20th century, two Nobel laureates, their communication. What Albert Einstein is saying, he's saying, in the West, we have built a large and big, beautiful ship. And this ship has got all the comforts in it. But one thing is missing. The ship does not have a compass, and it does not know where to go. And in the East, people like Gandhi and Tagore, I'm quoting Albert Einstein. He's saying in the East, people like Gandhi and Tagore, maybe if His Holiness the Dalai Lama was at that time, he might have said with people like Gandhi, Tagore, and His Holiness, and their spiritual forebearers. In the East, they have discovered this compass. So why not this compass is put into the ship so that both can realize their purpose? So the ship is nothing but the world in which we are living. This has been visualized as a ship by this Albert Einstein. And he's saying without compass, this ship is directionless. And this what Dalai Lama is pointing out, and what we are discussing is universal ethics. These are these are the compass, which we in India, we have core competence for it. Our spiritual forebearers have discovered this compass. This is what the Albert Einstein is saying. So I'll end with this. In 2023, India has been given this presidency of G20. And I was coming from a railway station. I saw the board, "One Earth, One Family, One Future." Everywhere, on the street, it is written. You might also have seen. So this "One Earth, One Family, One Future," this idea, and where India is leading for G20, I think the message of His Holiness, the universal ethics and the global responsibility for the future world order, I think that is very, very relevant. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I'd only asked for his names to be explained. He also explained the meaning Nalanda. Yeah, brilliant, huh? You always get a bonus. I didn't realize that came from the lotus and also as knowledge beyond limit. How many of you are still awake? The good thing about the Buddha is he often has his eyes closed. Yeah, you notice when they make the statue half open. Why do they make his eyes closed or half open? Why? Because he's observing not just the outer world, but also his inner world. So if you have your eyes closed, which means you're not sleeping, you have become Buddhas. Okay. Time to wake up, young friends. We'll have 20 minutes of questions, and if your stomach is rumbling, we can make it quicker. But let's have an interactive session. So I'll sit down there. Do we have a mic, or do we? Yeah. Okay. Tenzin can just raise your hands, and we can have questions. Yes. There you are.
Okay, greeting to all. My question is to Dr. Nilza. So my question is you mentioned the cognitive and affective. So the affective is related much to the heart and cognitive is related more to the mind. And just like Gisela mentioned that cognitive is also important, just like for the making the traffic rules. So my question is let's say that after 2 centuries later, that universe ethics or affective heart, the people are good enough. If people become good enough, that today is the crux of this conference, to develop the heart of the person. Let's say that has accomplished. And my question is is there any problem with if we focus too much on affective, even though there is cognitive?
Even though, sorry, could you?
My question is if there any problem in the future after 2 century years later if we focus too much on affective.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is this.
Okay, so these are, when I mentioned about the cognitive and affective, these are 2 functions of the mind, right? So how you cognize an object, how you understand an object, the reality of an object. Depending on that, certain emotions arise. So if you see, let's say if you see an ordinary black and white cell phone and an iPhone, two things. You recognize one as an iPhone, one as an ordinary phone, which is very cheap. But you see two objects and you recognize, but the emotions that arise towards these two objects are different, right? So, I won't generalize, but but in most cases, we get attracted to an iPhone, right? Because so there, the desire to have that object, which is more expensive and fancy, so the attachment arises. So when you talk about, when you ask the question, if we focus too much on the effective part, so effective, we need to, understand in two contexts. One in the context of the ordinary emotions, worldly emotions that we experience, and one in the context of what Buddha encourages us to develop, like emotions of like compassion, great compassion, bodhicitta, and equanimity, and loving kindness. So if we develop these positive emotions, why not we focus more on effective, these positive emotions, whereas the other emotions that arises, for example, attachment towards the iPhone, that is not a positive emotion, that's more like a destructive emotion. So we need to try to reduce those destructive emotions and inculcate more of these positive emotions. Yeah, thank you. I hope that answers.
If I can you hear me on this? Just to add to that, is it useful always to distinguish between cognitive intelligence and emotional intelligence? Do we just think from the mind and then the body reacts by producing feeling or emotions? Or can one think from the heart? This dichotomy, right, between us and the world, same here. The word emotional intelligence means the emotions themselves are intelligent. The heart knows things which the head can never know. I once saw a gentleman tell me the longest distance is from here to here, from the head to the heart. Yeah, but perhaps there is no distance at all. If we let our hearts do the thinking and talking for us. So if you have a warm heart, then our thoughts move in a particular way. Our intelligence, cognitive intelligence has one kind of flavor. If we are warm-hearted, our cognitive intelligence is a completely different flavor. So dividing the head and the heart is itself erroneous. It's a dualistic way, perhaps. So, I'm struck by the fact that the real people who know about this, the masters, the Sangha community, Geshe, and all people here, we amateurs are talking about Shunyata and so forth, while the great masters are just listening to these kids on the block. Yeah, say what they do. Great sense of humility. Look at them hearing this kind of silly little half-baked stuff we're speaking. Yes. But as the Buddha said, it's not only important that people understand in a million different ways because our minds are different, but although the truth is the same, we need to express it in our own unique way. Each of one lives that truth, the Four Noble Truths, in our own unique way, depending on our temperament. So they're giving us the platform to stumble on the way, to learn uniquely, and to make mistakes and learn from it and live the truths or try and search for the truths in our own unique way. So thank you, Geshe, and all the members of the Sangha community here for tolerating us. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Professor. And I have a comment and a question. The comment is on quantum physics. I am a physicist used to teach quantum physics. And therefore, I am very much appreciative of the effort done by His Holiness in bringing science and religion together. Recently, a lot of quote has been made about quantum computing, quantum entanglement, and a whole lot of things. I would very humbly submit that the convergence is very far. I think I'll stand up because this is a very important subject and I think we have to really understand it. The quantum entanglement, quantum computing, uncertainty principle, Heisenberg uncertainty principle as he was quoting, are a domain which are very concrete. They start giving you some results very quickly. Like the fusion, for example, you might have read about the fusion these days. The world will undergo a total change if the fusion research succeeds, to which some results are coming up. So this is a comment saying that we may try to converge it, but the convergence is a little far away. We have to really think about it much more deeper. That's one comment. The question is very much addressed to Professor Vivek, Suneja and the panelists. Incidentally, I also studied FMS long time back in 80s, so I'm very happy to know that you are director of FMS. So you are the man who can manage things. You teach us how to manage.
I wish.
You teach us how to manage. So I put a question to you. His Holiness Dalai Lama has put in some of the most profound concepts on compassion, on universal ethics, and a whole lot of things. Absolutely great. I ask you a question, very pointed question. How do you use these ethics to manage peace in the world? Where are we trying to find peace in the world, especially with Ukraine and a whole lot of things, Rajgir and a whole lot of things which are happening. So how do we manage it? Where do we build it in and the plug-in so that the world becomes a better place to live? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You want to respond to that first? How do we build peace? First, get like-minded people together. Thanks to Tibet House. Get you here, sir, and we have a chat. No, it's not simple. No, I'm not ducking the question at all. Look, no, I'm not ducking the question. With respect. Look, His Holiness. I mean, he could easily have become bitter, as was pointed out by His Excellency the President, not hating the Chinese. He expands his vision, right? Now you might say, what good has that done us? Tibet is not free and stuff. It will be in its own time. The Dhampada, with respect to the Sangha, begins by saying the mind is the forerunner of everything. The mind is the forerunner of everything, right? How do we build peace? Well, in our own little way. So at the University of Delhi now, we tried this earlier, it didn't work, but now we have done it with His blessings from His Holiness. We've introduced 2 courses for all undergraduate students, and Delhi University has 300,000 undergraduates every year in the first year. They are called Ethics and Culture, the other is Social Emotional Learning, the third is Science and Society. Very much on the principles of His Holiness book, Beyond Religion, right? But in a participative way. Not in a prescriptive narrative way. Get people to talk about what they're facing in their homes, their communities, and generate insight from that. So if we have peace in our hearts, there's hope there may be peace in the world. We do a little thing. So the ambassador does it when she goes to the UN. She was here sitting in the seat. We do it in our own little way. Tibet House does what it can. And I think His Holiness is right. Ultimately, so many causes and conditions come together, so all in its due time. Right? If you think the world has ever been peaceful, tell me when. We had Mahabharata. I mean, if you go to the ancient times, we have had war after war. So these are not unusual times. Disease, I mean, plague wiped out 1/4 of European population. So we forgot that. Now we got COVID. Yes. So the existential questions remain the same. I often think, what has changed when Buddha, who was a prince, he was not running from poverty. He was not escaping poverty. He was an affluent man. Yes. King and wealth and comfort. But sensitive to what? To human suffering. Why is there sickness? Why is there death? Has that changed? Not at all. We are exactly where we were in Buddha's time. No difference at all. I mean, he had a palace. We have a much more humble Gulmohar Hall, but this is nice too. Same questions. You're asking, when will we get food? When will Professor Suneja shut up? Existential connect. Same things. So same questions. So in some sense, thank God they are the same questions. Because then we got something to do. Yes, if there was complete nirvana here, we'd have nothing to do. And the journey itself is nirvana. As Nagarjuna said, and I often wondered, nirvana is samsara, and samsara is nirvana. So the journey is perhaps even more important than the goal. So, yeah, perhaps I am ducking the question, but never mind. Okay, shall we take one more question? It depends on how your rumblings and your intellectual curiosity versus your existential stomachs. So it depends. Go on. Yes, sir. Hunger for knowledge versus hunger for food. We can have both, of course.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Tenzin Chunde. So I came across this question. So this was put to me by my senior. So he asked me, "What is religion?" So I was completely blank. I didn't have any thought. I haven't given it a thought once in my life. So my question is to all three of you. Yeah. What's your thought on religion? What's the definition?
Let's begin with Dr. Nilza and then go to Dr. Pranshu.
What's the definition of religion?
Yeah, what is your definition of religion?
And significance of the religion to all three of you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Go on, Nilza.
Yeah, am I audible now? Okay. So I don't have any my own answer, but this is what I heard His Holiness say. His Holiness, when he tries to put the Buddhist wisdom in three different ways. One is the Buddhist science, Buddhist philosophy, and Buddhist religion. So how do you demarcate between Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist science, and Buddhist religion? So His Holiness says the minute you talk about afterlives, your quest for, moving into the next life or no afterlives, heaven, the concept of heaven and hell. So there, the minute you talk about afterlives, there you enter into the domain of religion. So this is what His Holiness has said. I don't know if that answers the question.
Thanks.
No, I was in my university. I was teaching a course on comparative religion. So there were this question. I have to I used to start the class with this question: that what is religion? And of course, you can see take the Oxford Dictionary or any good dictionary. You can see the definition. The idea of religion in the Judeo-Christian tradition or is something different. You have one prophet, one symbol, one scripture. You can clearly tell. Christianity, so Christ is the prophet, Bible is the text, cross is the symbol. And look at when you compare this with the Eastern tradition. I ask, there are several, people, those who follow Hindu tradition. I ask which scripture you follow. Somebody will say Bhagavad Gita, somebody will say Ramayana, somebody will say Veda, somebody will say, even in my class, somebody said Hanuman Chalisa. So there is no one scripture, no one prophet. We have, so many incarnations of Buddha himself. Buddha is, ye to Buddha atita cha, ye to Buddha anagata, pachupanna tu te Buddha, aham bandami sabbata. Pali monastic, they recite this. I pay my homage to past Buddha and present Buddha and the future Buddha. There is no one Buddha. There is no one prophet. And there is, of course, no one symbol. So when we look into from the Eastern perspective, there is a word called dharma. In dharma. And the definition, etymological definition says, yah dharyati iti dharma. What one should practice, what one should, dharana karna man, what yogya hai dharan karna, what one should wear, like one should wear, one should possess, that is the dharma. And in Manusmriti, there is another definition which gives dhriti, kshama, damastyam, indriyam, shaucham, nigraha, like having patience, dhriti, kshama, forgiveness, dam, control over senses, indriya, nigraha, dhi, vidya, dhi means intellect, vidya, wisdom, satyam, truthfulness, akrodham, no anger, dasakam, dharma, lakshanam, these are the 10 characteristics of the dharma. So whatever these are, we should inculcate in ourselves these, what we are talking, universal ethics, that is the definition of the dharma as per this, Eastern tradition.
Thank you. Yeah. And you can see the mastery of, his knowledge of all kinds of religious texts. No wonder he is at Nalanda. What is religion? I think every one of us, there's nobody who does not have a religion, even the so-called atheists. Religion is your worldview. You can have a right view, wrong view, and the Buddha said have the right view, but it's a view of life. You can't live life without some idea what this is about, attributing some meaning to it. That's your philosophy. That's your personal religion. The word religion itself, etymologically, religion, jer, which means gather together. Religer, gather together again, right? What does that mean? Gather all your energies together, become integrated, become whole, not split up, not schizophrenic. The word integrity comes from integer, not fraction. Your mind says something, your body says something, your hormones say something, your heart says something. They're all running in different directions. Then you will never have peace. Mind, heart, cognitive, emotional intelligence together, integrated. Then we're whole, holy. So we can have all kinds of religions. We can have a materialistic religion. Yeah, we can have a religion of anarchy. The world, the sixth school of Indian philosophy, one Chakravarka, pure materialism. Yeah, you can be like the selfish Jean Dawkins. Yeah, it's all a cosmic accident. The reason we don't have tails at the moment, yeah, the reason we're having this discussion, just because a quirk in the evolutionary history. What rebirth? We are selfish monkeys. That's a religion for Dawkins. That's his religion. Yes, so religion. But are all views right? I think that's carrying it too far, because then that's anarchy. And the Buddha said, no, the world works in a particular way. There is moral order in the universe. This is not chaos, this is cosmos. The word cosmos means order. Chaos is disorder. It's not an accident. Now, if you believe that, right, and it's up to you, but the Nagarjuna and others said, we won't convince this through persuasion, we'll do it through logic and through experience. So meditate, introspect, and argue, and perhaps you'll come around to my point of view, the Buddha's point of view. So that's a short answer to a very, very difficult question. Okay, all right. One last burning question, because you won't sleep at night otherwise. Yes? All right. So one last, and then we'll go for lunch. We're running late. We can do this. We can take some of this to the next session, right? We have future sessions. Go on. Yes, ma'am. You. Please.
So my question is I'm Komal from Tonglen. So from Tonglen School, Dharamshala, and my question is that we are learning the third book of Agyanyas, like my book of compassion. In that we are learning about interdependence. So my question is that I am a learner and I had learned interdependence is depend on each other. I just want to ask how interdependence is related to compassion.
All right. Before I pass this, I'll be selfish, okay? It's an occupational hazard. Professors profess. Lectures lecture. You can forgive me for this. Interdependence and independence. We all want to be independent. Nirvana, mukti, freedom, independence. Independent of all dependence. That's the final aim. How do you achieve it? By recognizing interdependence. When you recognize shunyata, interdependence, then you have independence, which is nirvana. Then you don't depend on circumstance, then you become a Samdarshi. You're happy in yourself. I'm independent because I recognize everything is interdependent. I'm not an isolated fragment looking for the whole. I'm not tanha. This whole cosmos is one happy big family. Or it can be if we work hard enough, right? So that's my little philosophical take on it. Pranshu.
So,
how's interdependence related to compassion, you said? That's the question.
So again, thanks to Geshe, I have learned little philosophy, Buddhist philosophy. So this interdependence, when I was speaking, I gave the term which is called Pratyitya Samutpad. That's the very heavily loaded term. Don't get worried from this. Pratyitya Samutpad. Very easily it is translated as interdependent origination. Utpad is origination or production, interdependence. So almost we are closer, like interdependence or interdependent. So this, as I said, I don't have anything original from my side, but what the Nalanda masters, like Chandrakirti, he says, it's, there is me and there is the other. And he tells that there is just, these two things are coming together. So prati means in front, something which pratyaksh, prati aksh means aakh ke samne. So something is in front of you. And there is something is in front, that means you are there. So prati. And then when these two things come together. And tya is a term for motion. They are into motion. And then this, production is happening. Utpat. So utpat, actually utpatti, ut means arise and pat means fall. So utpat, so it is talking about the momentariness, that is, this phenomenal word is continuously producing and going off. Utpat, arising, falling. So that is utpad. So this is how the word exists according to Buddhist philosophy. Now connecting to the compassion. So based on this interdependence, you are not different than me, because I exist because you exist. And we are interdependent according to this Buddhist philosophy, which has a very rational and logical grounding. So this understand wisdom of emptiness, in other words, or wisdom of dependent origination, will lead to the compassion. Once you realize that I exist because this exists and this exists because I exist, so you have to be compassionate to, there is no other way. You have to be non-violent. You have to, once you realize this, so they are, there's two sides of the same coin in another way. They are interrelated, and the way we are interrelated. So,
Dr. Nilza?
Well, I'll share what I learned from Venerable Geshe-la again. So, Geshe-la often gives examples, an example of grandmother, mother, and the daughter. So the relationship between the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother. So with respect to the mother, the grandmother is the mother of the mother, right? And with respect to the daughter, the mother is the mother. So here you see an interdependence, right? So this compassion between the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother. So the grandmother will look at your mother as my child, that compassion, right? And your mother will look at you as her daughter, and that love, mother's love. So in the same manner, when we talk about bodhicitta, I think in the inaugural session we talked about this, I think Professor Vivek Suneja ji said that Geshe-la's New Year message was all mother sentient beings. So when we talk about the Buddhist concept of bodhicitta, where we consider all sentient beings having been a mother in our past lives. So there, this compassion, a mother has a compassion towards the child, only because we are not able to see the previous lives or the future lives. We think that we are not related. But for a Buddha, whose all mental defilements are eradicated, they can see through past lives, future lives, the subtle workings of the karma. So there, one can really connect with all sentient beings as one's own mother. So there, the compassion flows freely towards all sentient beings. So that's a very high level though, but I don't know if I make sense.
But we can have a glimpse of the Buddha now. We're all Buddha nature, right? We can be Buddhas now. Eternity is not infinite period of time. Eternity is timeless. If you're in the present, independent of all your past and alive, that's eternity. Yes? so we can be Buddhas now, at least for a moment, till our habitual tendencies come back. Which means what? Be completely silent in our minds. Then there's a sense of oneness. And the love is not just between your mother and yourself, between everybody. Never mind past incarnations, future incarnations. We're all friends here. We can have a sense of affection here right now. If we let our hearts be, if we don't let our minds interfere, we are not over clever. We're just relaxed, we're happy, and we're in love with each other. Love in the business school. When I use love in my management class, people look at me as if I've used a dirty word. If I use profit, dividends, investment, rate of return, fighting, conflict, competition, wow. If I say love, they look at me. I ask them to hold hands, my class guys. They feel very, very odd. Very odd holding hands. I said, okay, give each other a smack, and they all smacked each other. With luster. We can't be simple anymore. Our complex brains won't let our simple hearts be. This is not some great metaphysics and so on. This is as simple, as clear as daylight, as the air we breathe. What's the problem with affection? Nothing. Let us be affectionate. Full stop. Now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With this, we conclude our question and answer session. And now I would like to thank Professor Vivek Suneja ji for his kind words, and really, making this session really interactive, and with a hinge of his humor. This session has been full of laughter. Thank you very much, sir. And I would also like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Nilza Wangmo, and Dr. Pranshu Samdarshi ji, for their profound knowledge and wisdom about the topic. With this, I would like to humbly request Professor Vivek Suneja ji to kindly do the honor of presenting the white scarf and the souvenir to our guest speakers. Please, sir. Dr. Nilza Wangmo. Dr. Pranshu Samdarshi ji, please give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much, sir. And with this, we conclude our first session. And let me inform you that the lunch is being served at the nearby lobby. I hope you have a good lunch, and then we'll have our second session, which will be moderated by my colleague, Mr. Tenzin Legmanla. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.